What's good, y'all? What's good, Real Talk Squad? This is Miles, your listener, Real Talk of Miles Johnson, where we always keep it real. Let's get straight into it, man. All right. It's been a couple of days, and of course, Howie Roseman made a trade. John Metchi from the Texans brought him over to reunite with Devontae Smith, two Alabama brothers right there. Now, John Metchi, second round pick from the Texans. The guy battled leukemia and also a torn ACL. So he's been through some valleys in his career. He's only 25, but does he have the talent? He does. Now, before today, when I first saw the trade, in my feed, I thought to myself, why? That was my first reaction. I was like, why are the Eagles trading for another wide receiver? Because you got Darius Cooper, the guy who I feel like has the most untapped potential out the group. You got Johnny Wilson, you got Anais Smith, who in the preseason has been snapping. Like, if anything, maybe you would add depth to safety or cornerback, something in the secondary. But why would you do that at wide receiver? But the reason I believe is because they need more bodies to give Jalen Hurts in practice. Because if A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are out of practice, A.J. Brown has been out, Devontae Smith has been in and out. Am I concerned? I'm not. I think the Eagles know what they're doing, and they're simply being precautionary right now because they need these guys for the regular season and not training camp. And they've played with Hurts for multiple years. So they already have that relationship and that on-field chemistry. It's better if they just get healthy. But regardless, Jalen Hurts still needs reps. And so if you have almost half of his wide receiver core injured or not practicing, you're going to need some more bodies. And you're going to need some more bodies of guys that, are really talented like that. Not to say the guys that they have now aren't talented, because we saw after day one of training camp, it was Terrace Marshall Jr. that had a breakout day. And A.J. Brown was like, he's going to make the wide receiver room uncomfortable. Now, since then, we haven't heard much from Terrace Marshall Jr., but it goes to show how talented the NFL is in general, but this Eagles team too. But I think we have a situation where AJ and Smitty, like I said, are in and out of the lineup. And then we saw Dallas Goedert become a limited participant in practice today. Then Johnny Wilson gets carted off with a leg injury and he can barely put weight on his leg. I don't know what Howie knew, but getting John Metchi right before Johnny Wilson suffers a leg injury in training camp is a crazy coincidence, because I'm thinking to myself, John Metchi is going to be a practice squad guy, because there are several wide receivers in the Eagles depth chart, from Darius Cooper, Anais Smith, Johnny Wilson, that have more stain currently. But with Johnny Wilson being injured now, and you don't know the severity of his injury, one could say this is an opening for John Metchi to take it. So maybe it becomes Darius Cooper, John Metchi, and Anais Smith as the guys backing up Jahan Dotson, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown. That could very well happen. So we have to see where that is right there. Is John Metchi extremely talented? Yes. Was he dealt a bad hand with his injuries and health problems? For sure. And Johnny Wilson, and this is how the NFL works, bro, because if you get injured and your backup outperforms you, or your backup doesn't show a drop off, the shelf life for a athlete who's injured, you're not gonna be it's gonna be pretty soon. Like you're gonna be out of here. So ultimately, I think Johnny Wilson may have lost his spot on this Eagles team. And what happens is if you don't have a strong foundation before your injury, when you get injured, you're expendable. Like if AJ Brown is injured, you're not cutting the guy, trading him because he has a body of work, a strong foundation where you know what he is when he's healthy. Johnny Wilson is in a situation where he's gotten injured at the worst time, at the absolute worst time, because it's not a guarantee that he makes the roster. I think before his injury, he had a really good chance because he had a good preseason game. And he just has, he's 6'7, bro, 6'6, 6'7. He has height that you simply cannot teach. But if you're injured and now you allow the opportunity for other guys on this team to get more reps with the second and first team, that pulls you behind the 8 ball a little bit. So I think with John Metchi, did I think that he was going to make the team initially? Nah. There were some Eagles fans that was like, big addition, Howie. Nah, look, it's a reason why at this stage in the middle of August, the Eagles are trading pick swaps to get John Metchi. I just think it's another body to throw at Jalen Hurts or to give Jalen Hurts. And it's another body in practice, whether it's Tanner, etc., Kyle McCord. But Johnny Wilson opens the door now. Now let's get to something that intrigued me. And it's not about the Eagles. Well, it's about the Eagles, but it's about another team, and it kind of connects with the Eagles. Anthony Richardson just got benched for Daniel Jones. I'm sorry, Colts fans, but if Daniel Jones is your starting quarterback, you're cooked. You're cooked, buddy. So ultimately, who's the head coach of the Colts? Shane Steichen. Who was the offensive coordinator that unlocked Jalen Hurts' potential and got him to become a MVP candidate? It was Shane Steichen. So the Eagles could be in a position that if Kevin Patullo goes crazy, and let's just say he becomes a head coach, or on the downside, he isn't very good, and you move on, you got his successor right here in Shane Steichen, because I bet you the Colts are going to be ass. They're going to be trash. They're going to be dog crap. And they're most likely going to fire their coach. And when that happens, you don't think Shane Steichen is going to come over to Philly, where he had his most success in the NFL? That he's not going to rejoin a quarterback that changed his life? I mean, Jalen Hurts did change Shane Steichen's life. He's not going to be a head coach in this league if it wasn't for Jalen Hurts' MVP season. And also, Jalen Hurts would not have had that MVP season if it wasn't for the brilliance of play calling of Shane Steichen. And Shane Steichen is so great that he was able to allow Hurts to get A.J. Brown 1,400 yards, to get Devontae Smith over 1,000 yards, to get him, 22-something passing touchdowns, over 35 total touchdowns in general. But he also limited his turnovers. Like Brian Johnson, yes, Jalen Hurts had 3,800 passing yards. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith had career years for sure, but he had 15 picks. So Shane Steichen unlocked something from Jalen Hurts that he was not only a game changer without Saquon Barkley, with Miles Sanders, who's nobody's saying is a top 5 type of quarterback, top 5 running back in the league, unlocked him with lesser talent. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, Shane Steichen, come home, brother. Come home, brother. I would love to see that. Yeah, I would love to see that. Now, Kevin Patullo, according to all reports, has been great, and I'm rooting for him. And best case scenario, we actually have a offensive coordinator that stays for more than 1 year. But in the event Kevin Patullo leaves, gets a new job, gets fired, Shane Steichen, you're the guy. Unless Daniel Jones, by a miracle, shuts up the doubters and the Colts become a wild card team, which ain't going to happen. All right, we're going to see about that. I'm also thinking about the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders are going to fall off next season. I actually think the Cowboys are going to have a better record than the Commanders. Because if you look at the Commanders' schedule, they got the Giants week 1. That ain't no gimme. Not with that defensive line. You're at the Packers. That's a loss. The Raiders are much improved. Pete Carroll is speaking life into these boys. The old head is speaking life to these guys. You don't know what that one. You're at Atlanta. Michael Penix is the truth. That's going to be a tough matchup. You got the Chargers at LA, then the Bears. You know the Bears are going to be improved. The Cowboys at Dallas. Again, you're going to split with Dallas. So either you win away or you win at home, but you're not going to win both games. At the Chiefs, that's a loss. The Seahawks aren't scrubs. The Seahawks aren't scrubs. The Vikings. Well, they play the Vikings too. The Lions aren't scrubs. The Dolphins, I'll give you, that's a scrub. The Broncos ain't no scrubs. The Vikings aren't any scrubs either. And you got the Eagles. Out of your last 3 games, you play the Eagles last 2 of them. So you play the Eagles, I believe, in like week 16 and week 18. So I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the Commanders' schedule, and I'm saying 9 wins might be generous. It might be generous. But I'm not going to be disrespectful, and I'm going to keep it at 9 wins. Do I expect it could be lower than that? For sure. But best believe that this whole repeating this Cinderella season type of thing with the Commanders, it's not happening. It's simply not happening. And so I feel very confident that the Cowboys will actually become a better threat as a whole team compared to the Commanders. Now, who's a bigger threat to me? Jaden Daniels or Dak Prescott? It's for sure Jaden Daniels, 100%. But does Jaden Daniels have Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb? He do not. So that's what it is. And we're going to do next episode something on the Giants, because I think the Giants could be the most competitive 3 or 4 win team of all time. All right, last topic, Eagles defense. Look, bruh, I think it's safe to say Keely Ringo lost the job. Now, Adoree Jackson is getting first team reps, and you would assume that Jacorian Bennett, who has simply put out the best tape in the preseason, is in line to become the starting cornerback maybe after week 1. Like, just because Adoree has been here for the whole preseason, OTAs, all that stuff, and he's been here longer than Jacorian, he might start week 1. But I do believe that Jacorian Bennett is slotted to start opposite of Quinyon Mitchell at some point in this season. And now you're looking at this and you're saying, all right, Keely, who's a guy that all of Philly, I cannot say this enough. Everybody wanted Keely Ringo to win the job because he's a Georgia Bulldog. He was drafted in 2023. Howie Roseman didn't sign Isaiah Rodgers because he had so much faith in Keely Ringo. That ultimately is a mistake because I think if Howie Roseman, traveled to the future and he saw what Keely Ringo is doing in this training camp in these preseason games, he would have signed Isaiah Rodgers. I truly believe if Howie Roseman could travel in time, go forward, and see what Keely Ringo is doing right now, he would say to himself, I need to re-sign Isaiah Rodgers. He didn't because he was so confident in Keely Ringo. And that was a mistake. It was. So we're in a situation where I have this scenario. Because I'll be honest, do I want Adoree Jackson against George Pickens week 1? Respectfully, no. I think the only guys that can limit CD and George Pickens in any type of way are Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. If anybody else is on those two guys, Dak Prescott is going to have 350 passing yards against the Eagles. That's what's going to happen. And so I would say, with the way that Andrew Makuba played in his first preseason game, I would move I would move Cooper DeJean to the outside and have him follow George Pickens the whole entire game. And Quinyon is following CD. And with the way this Eagles linebacker group has been balling with Jeremiah Trott Jr., Jahai Campbell, and Defensive Player of the Year candidate Zach Bond, and that ferocious defensive line the Eagles have, I'm good with that. What I'm not good with is Adoree Jackson one-on-one on George Pickens. What I'm not good with is Keely Ringo one-on-one with George Pickens because George Pickens already cooks elite wide receivers. Never mind guys that are battling to get a starting spot. Never mind guys that are battling to get a starting spot. That's my solution. I would move Cooper DeJean everywhere as needed, depending on the game. And for the game against the Cowboys, he is best suited against George Pickens and Quinyon against CD, which he already is going to be on. But that's what I think. Let me know what you think down below. Are you concerned about the cornerback 2 competition? Was this a mistake by Howie Roseman? What's your thoughts on John Metchi and him reuniting with Devontae Smith? Do you think he could actually make the roster? Let me know down below. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I have a special friend that thinks the Commanders are going to get more than 9 wins. Let's just tell her that's not happening. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. It is Real Talk with MJ, where y'all know I always keep it real. I'm out, y'all.